Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit so far. Just before we jump into the next session, we're so excited to announce the launch of Customer Marketing Core Certified. With 55 chapters and 13 modules alongside fireside chats with contributors from Lessonly, Qualtrics, Hotjar, PitchBook and more, we guarantee you'll receive all the actionable learnings you need to embody your customers and elevate your role. This certification will equip you with knowledge of the most up-to-date customer marketing trends and includes modules on personas, cross-selling and upselling, advocacy and community, storytelling, engagement and retention, just to name a few. Our brand new course will be launching on April 27th, so be sure to pre-register now to save $100. I'll be posting the link in the comments, so keep your eyes peeled. But for now, back to the Customer Marketing Summit.
Advocates create what buyers seek. Authentic customer stories, product reviews, video testimonials, case studies, and more. User-generated content is digital gold, and it's the topic of our next session.
Hey everyone, up next we have another amazing live session, so don't forget to ask your questions in the comments section. Please welcome Evan Hook, co-founder and CEO of User Evidence, and Charlotte Lilly, head of global customer marketing at Coupa.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, folks. We're so happy to be here. Both Charlotte and I have been in customer marketing for a long time, and it's been amazing to see the growth of the function over the last years. It's been really cool in the last Influitive session. We saw that customer marketers are getting a lot more resources and budget, but with that comes a lot of demand to do more. So today we're going to talk about how to do more and scale your customer marketing function with a relatively small amount of resources. So I'm Evan Huck, the CEO of User Evidence. I'm here with one of our customers, Charlotte Lilly from Coupa. How you doing, Charlotte?
So good. So good to be here. Thanks.
Nice, right on. Do you want to give the folks just a little bit of background on, again, you've been in customer marketing. I think you're really maybe the first, if not one of the first people I've ever saw with a customer marketing title, probably 7 or 8 years ago or something. Do you want to give folks a little bit of background on just how you got into customer marketing and your journey there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a few of us that I see on here as well that have been around at least over a decade. It's like, oh my God, I'm so old. But I've been in customer marketing for, over a decade, maybe 12 years or something like that. But I actually came up through sales. So I was started off as a BDR or ADR, whatever you want to call it, SDR, and then went into sales. And then I was at a company called Box. And at that time we were growing like crazy, and everyone kept coming to the sales team for customer stuff. And I was always like, use my customers, because I knew the value of what it would do with my relationship with them if they were, doing really cool stuff, sharing their story. It would create kind of a bond. And so the marketing team said, hey, do you want to come over and create customer programs? And I was like, what's that? But sure, why not? I've been in sales a couple of years. Why don't I try something new? And so I went into marketing and started customer marketing. And back then it was mostly kind of like references, or that when you think about it, like more services oriented customer marketing, where people are just asking you for customers. But soon after I started thinking, I want to be more strategic, and I think it just worked out for me personally because I'm a planner and I like to know where I'm going. And so I was like, well, I don't want to feel reactive. So how do I start putting together programs that are proactive? So that was the journey of, my journey in customer marketing. And so now here we are today.
Awesome.
Many years later. Yeah. And I've joined other companies as well to head up customer marketing. One of the things I love doing the most is coming in and starting customer marketing from scratch. But Coupa is actually a little bit different. I came in and there was a little bit of a program and a couple of team members in place already. So
yeah. So Coupa is, not a startup, right? You've been at some smaller companies, and in fact, most of the companies, Box, Outreach, WeWork, you've been fortunate to experience a ton of growth. Coupa is, already there and a pretty large company. What does the customer marketing team look like, and what is your role in kind of the scope and charter of the function there?
Yeah, so when I came on board almost 2 years ago, there were 2 current team members, so 3 including myself, and then we've grown it to 7 globally since I've been here. What's great is that, I've been able to come on board and set a strategy and kind of work against that, and it's been working really well in terms of getting executive support, and people are finally starting to notice kind of the value of customer marketing, because before it was more of a service oriented model. And then when I came on board, we started putting into place more strategic programs. And so with the 17 members, there's 2 in EMEA, and then there's 5 in the US. And then I've structured customer marketing out into 3 pillars. The first is kind of the advocacy pillar. So it's kind of the stories, what we're going to talk about today, the reference program, and then also kind of references across marketing and all the other things we need customers for. And then a formal advocacy program, of course, that we're going to be launching at the end of this year. And then the second pillar is all around executive programs. So how do we engage with that executive customer base that's really hard to get to? So we have really cool programs in that. And then the third is really around kind of the install base or life cycle customer marketing. So how do we market with and to our current customers to engage with them, to get them to become advocates, to upsell and cross-sell with those as well. So yeah, it's kind of exciting, and yeah, we've been building it out in that model.
Yeah, someone pointed it out in the last session with Influitive, or 2 sessions ago, that upsell and cross-sell. I think a lot of folks here probably work for software companies and SaaS companies where that's hugely important nowadays, and a relatively new function of customer marketing. Have you found yourself like being able to impact that much, and does that like get much attention from the executive team, like driving your team to actually aid in that sort of thing?
It's funny because one of the things I've noticed, over time, over these 12 years, is customer marketing is taking on so many different definitions. So some people think of it as purely advocacy. Some people think of it as purely what we're talking about, which is that more segmentation and upsell, cross-sell with the install base. And so what I've designed is, a program that touches from end to end, where it's advocacy over to install base. And to be fair, Coupa itself hasn't really, we're starting to embrace, what does a go-to-market look like for that motion for install base. But when I first came on board, I noticed we just had some major gaps. And so we have started some programs for that. One example is what we call the Catalyst event series, which is basically just events for customers. We didn't really have that before. And I was like, well, we're, doing so much for prospects for one, and we're also asking so much of our customers. We have this huge gap around engaging customers and giving them an opportunity to even just network with each other. And of course, we partner with the install-based sales team for them. We invite the open opportunities that we have in our current customer base first. And so we strategize it around that way, but that's been super impactful already. And that's just one program.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so coming back to the meat of what we're talking about here, you have a large customer base in the sense of actual customers, and then you have a large internal customer base, which is sales, demand gen, social, et cetera. Can you give us just a sense of what's the size of Coupa's user base and customer base, and then what's the size of the sales team that you have to support?
Yeah, we have 2,500 plus customers at this point. And then the sales team, oh my gosh, it just is growing so much. I think we hired 100 sales reps since January.
Dang, wow.
So all of us out here know what that means for a team like mine. It's like, oh my gosh, now it's like all these requests are coming in. People don't know what they're doing. They don't know where to find information. So luckily, what we'll talk about in a little bit is kind of like how we put together at least some scalable things that make it easy for sales to find the customer information they need when they need it. But yeah, we have a lot, and we sell to all industries. We have upwards of 10 products. We have all the different segments, right? From small business all the way up to now what we call strategic, which is like large companies like Apple or something. And then of course we support all the regions as well. So North America, LATAM, EMEA, APJ, we're even going into Africa and EAU. And so my team is expected really to support everyone. And it's certainly challenging and it's hard to prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in today's world, prospects expect really relevant proof. Like it's cool to know that Coupa works with the NFL and all these Wells Fargo and all these cool customers, but you have a sales rep who's selling to APAC and the mid-market and particularly healthcare and trying to beat a certain competitor. How do you like think about organizing your content creation efforts? Like, did you do some sort of audit at the beginning to be like, what do we even have so far, so we can figure out like where the gaps are?
Yes. Yeah, when I first came on board, that was a big question I had, right? Was like, cool, okay, if we're going to create some stories, like what do we have so that we know what we can create? And I think it was pretty much impossible to see what we had because we didn't really have like an index per se, but we did do an audit. And so it was quite a lengthy process because I wanted to be sure that we had all the details that we needed for that audit and the ability to actually see a true gaps analysis. And so I can actually show you guys a couple slides showcasing some of the things that we did, but we went ahead and we went into Tableau and we took a look at what we had in terms of open opportunities so that we could at least prioritize, okay, what are the open pipeline, what's the open pipeline that we have today in terms of industry, use case. And then we wanted to make sure that we were prioritizing the stories that we created against that. The other thing though that we have is we do use HighSpot, which is a content management solution for sales. I have to say, if it's organized well and tagged well, it can be really, really useful for creating somewhat of a gaps analysis. And so let me just show you real quick what we kind of created. I'll make this a little bit bigger so it's easier for you to see. But basically, when we did our audit, this is, we did it by segment, we did it by industry, we did it by use case. And so this was kind of what we came up with when we when we looked for our mid-market segment. We said, okay, where do we have content for each industry? But then also what we did was we looked at, okay, what's the biggest kind of like bang for our buck? So we also looked at what opportunities have high ACV and low close rate or high close rate. And in Coupa, we decided we wanted to prioritize, those things with high ACV. So it's more quality over quantity, you could say. And so what we found here is, consumer products, retail, education, et cetera. Those were the industries that we were going to actually prioritize because they have that high ACV. So I thought that was kind of interesting, in terms of slicing and dicing the way that you look at it. Sometimes when we do a gaps analysis, we just say, okay, what do we have and what don't we have? But it's really the information and data behind what we have and what we don't have that can help us determine where we want to go next. So I would recommend and highly encourage people, when you're thinking about a gaps analysis or doing an audit, take a look at what you have, but don't just say, oh, let's fill in these gaps. Say, okay, well, what opportunities do we have coming up? Let's build content for those opportunities that are coming in the next year. And then also take a look at, well, actually, which ones are worth it, because I think all of us, we all have challenges with budget, I think, and resourcing. So that's kind of, why I was thinking about it that way.
That's really shy. I've seen like people, at least anecdotally, say, oh, we have gaps in whatever healthcare, government, or something like that. But I've never heard of the approach of also then on the flip side, like thinking about, all right, where's the biggest opportunity and the most revenue going? Because, filling in gaps where we don't have opportunities, doesn't make a lot of sense because there's not going to be demand there. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've done it that way in the past though. And then when I came here, I was like, I think I need to get a little smarter because of how much we have to be really strategic with all the different personas and all the different people that we're actually supporting here.
Yeah. So when I look at that chart, you have at least 15 industries or something out there, a lot of them that did have gaps, and you had 2,500 customers. So the good news is, you do have a decent sized base, but you're 7 people, maybe you were 4 when you started or whatever it is. Do you just start calling down the list, or like how do 4 to 7 people go attack 2,500 customers? And I imagine each of those customers probably has multiple users within those accounts. Like how does it go from 1 to 1, if it is, to 1 to many?
Okay, so that's a super meaty question. I think that there's a few things. One is that we, I guess what we used to do and what we're thinking about doing again is having specific people on the team work on specific segments. I think it's easier when you actually can work with the same type of customer instead of context switching. So that's just one quick thing that if you have the ability to do it, I would recommend it. The other element too is that we're thinking about scale. So one thing we're really thinking about is hiring a new team member who will actually be the person who is sort of sourcing these new opportunities. So I think of it just coming from sales, like you and I both come from the sales background.
The SDR of the customer marketing world.
That's precisely it. Like actually setting it up that way where someone has that role where they can be the eyes and ears of the program. So I would want them to sit on the sales team meetings. I would want them to sit on the customer success meetings, but also I want them to source through our recruiting channels, right? So like many of us, I think we all recruit through our website or through events or talking to this customer success team in terms of recruiting customers to be advocates. And so this is like another area where I actually think user evidence will come in really handy because what we can do is use something like user evidence to actually cast a wide net to see what stories are out there and what customers are even interested in doing. And then that allows us to, qualify or pre-qualify these stories so that we can then say, okay, this one's actually a story that has legs. Let's actually go after it. And that person would kind of be responsible for that.
Yeah.
So I like that approach. I've had it on my mind for many years actually, and I was building that out at WeWork before I left. And so I'm excited to kind of try that here.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up, the SDR kind of sales analogy, because you think about the evolution of that role for those of us in sales. At first we were just manually doing emails and cold calls, and then we were doing mail merges through Excel and Word, and then eventually we got things like Pardot and Outreach.io and SalesLoft, and so technology helped us go from just sending an email to now sending talking to 10,000 prospects at a time within a week. I imagine you'll start to see some analogous kind of scaled approaches, or call it marketing automation for customer marketing, right? Pop up in the coming years, I would think.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I think has changed over the the 10 plus years that I've been here, is that now technologies are being built for customer marketers. And that's when you really know, right? That's when you really know, okay, this profession is really going somewhere because there's tools for it. I mean, think about like Salesforce for sales teams, like that was one big thing. And then it progresses from there. There's companies being built off of Salesforce. So I like seeing that. That's one reason why I'm actually very passionate about a company like User Evidence. I remember when I was at Box was the first time I really used a similar tool that helped me scale data collection. And so what I was doing was capturing that data and then turning it into really interesting statistics that we could use across our different content. And at Coupa, surprisingly enough, we're big and we've been around a while, but we haven't really had those specific statistics that speak to what our customers are doing. The standard like, oh, X amount of, CPOs say they save X amount of dollars a year. Like we don't have those baseline statistics. So that's what I think they're really impactful. And all the teams, all the cross-functional teams in marketing is just going to eat them up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's like that, for better or worse, there's perhaps a generational shift and maybe attention spans as you and I grew up kind of in the social media world where we just like to swipe and, we like that kind of model of engagement. You think about, the traditional case study, which is, feels like a blue book essay, right? And then, I'll contrast that with the kind of the bright world of and short format world of Instagram. How do you think about like creating a range of different content from customers for different attention spans? Like Stats is a good example, right? That's like short, digestible, but do you have different formats or options for customers to do that are kind of different lengths?
We do. Yeah, we do. It's funny. I was thinking about, I'm like, hey, now I remember before the internet. Okay. I remember dial-up. So I'm in that age, but I'm also like still.
We're elder millennials, right?
Yeah. Elder millennials. So actually, I do have a slide that I wanted to share. It's semi-related, so if it's okay, I'll
Yeah.
share that. That it kind of answers your question for the most part, but I thought this would be interesting to share with people because when I started thinking about, okay, all the different types of customer stories we could tell, obviously we know as customer marketers that that doesn't just mean a case study or a testimonial. That's, interesting conversations in terms of press and analysts, that's events, it's blog posts, it's webinars, it's everything. And
Yeah.
so I sorry, I'm gonna move my dog here.
Oh, hi, puppy.
This is little Martian. He's getting uncomfortable. So what I thought about was, well, okay, we need to create lots of different types of content, but how do we make it relevant and how do we organize it? And so what we decided to do was create kind of this like engagement across the customer journey. And for me, again, it's like, it's really helpful for me to think about this holistically, think about the journey and think about the content and when it's the most relevant. And so I highlighted the things here in yellow that are basically content related or that we can create content from, which is almost all of it. And so you'll see we go from the stage of pre-sale, because I believe, customer marketing touches customers across their full journey before they're a customer and then after they even leave their company. And so I think customer marketing, is the most integral kind of like central place for customers to see the full picture. So this was me trying to exemplify that in like a simplified way. But you can see we have, like you mentioned before, we have internal audiences and we have external audiences, right? And so how do we also think about that? So internally, wins to watch on our side is how do we showcase the newest wins internally to the team. And what we wanted, our goal with that wins to watch program is to really help people, one, understand the story, but also two, infuse some of our messaging around, oh, well, and they use this amazing reference, you should too. So that's an email that goes out to the sales team from the sales leader that we kind of tee up that highlights new wins. Of course, we have earnings calls, which is another opportunity to get a story. We do social media welcome posts. One thing that I think is a little bit different and interesting that I wanted to share here is that we do a Spendsetter Customer Chronicles blog. We're calling it the Customer Chronicles. It's a series. But this solves a challenge that we had around sales reps saying like, hey, I have this new customer, we should do a press release on them. And we know in marketing that you can't do a big press release on every customer that comes out. There needs to be a strategic reason for it. Right. And so, and then also it's like, what just a social post doesn't quite do it justice in terms of what they're looking for. It's a customer they really want to celebrate. So Customer Chronicles is a way that we are going to scale kind of storytelling where we send the same 5 questions to new customers, have them answer them, and then we put it on the blog, and then we do a social post. So it's a little bit more than just a social welcome post, and it's definitely less than like, oh, let's put out a whole press release and put on the wire and everything. I think I have a picture. Oh yeah, so this is a picture, just it's on our blog, and this is like what it's all about. So anyway, so I wanted to share that with folks, and of course, happy to chat with anyone if you're interested in how we think about, customer content along the journey. But
yeah, what's great is like, I mean, think about, sometimes people get trapped in like, we have one chance of getting this reference, right? But you're going back to the well, lots of different times in the context of the customer journey, right? You have a different ask for when they're a new customer than, when they're a mature customer that's experienced the value and the return on investment. So I think that the contextual ask of, can you tell me a story about where you're at right now in your journey is a really elegant way of thinking about just how to frame the request.
Yeah, and of course it's from lighter touch to heavier touch, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how you nurture advocates across their full journey as well. And I think content is one of the ways to do it, because the other thing that I always say is opportunity creates advocacy. There's no advocacy without opportunity. So how do you, as a customer marketer, strategically create these opportunities for them? And hopefully they're engaging and interesting and strategic opportunities across the board.
So we have a couple questions, and folks, feel free to drop more questions into the chat, and Charlotte and I can answer. I'm going to go through a couple here. One question was, are you connecting with prospects directly in the pre-sale stage? Another way to phrase that might be like, when do you ask a customer to get involved, and how do you know when it's appropriate to ask?
So yes and no. Currently, so in the past, what I've done and what I'd love to do here at Coupa is get involved in the early stages of the sales cycle. So at least at Coupa, we have, where they sign on the dotted line and then they go live. And really that period of implementation is a part in which we would engage with them. They're not necessarily a prospect at that stage, but I think for us programmatically, it would be great for us to align better with the sales team so that we're having conversations and joining QBRs in order to share with those customers, okay, this is what it's actually like when you become a customer. You'll become a part of the family, and these are then the opportunities that are available to you to really showcase, the customer marketing programs, but then also say, this is what it'll be like to become a spend setter, which is our advocate program. And so I'm not sure if I'm answering the question properly or not, but we are starting to engage with prospects, but we've had to put in some more foundational kind of customer programs first.
One other question that came up in the chat, you alluded to an advocacy program that you're launching later this year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh boy, yeah, it's meaty. Yeah, no, happy to share. It's just like, advocacy programs are quite meaty. So we, from day one, when I came on board, I realized that we don't really have a way in which we're communicating the benefit to customers of doing things with us. And then internally as well, people don't quite understand the value of what happens with a customer. So for example, if we're working with the sales team and they have a customer and we're asking them, hey, can we use this customer for XYZ? They might be a little more hesitant, but when we're showcasing what they're going to get out of it, they're way more willing to say, yes, use my customers. So when I think about longer term strategy and foundation building, what we need is these foundational elements first of creating this program. And then we can really open the funnel for recruiting new advocates. Like, that's not where I am right now. I don't want more, people saying, yeah, I'll do a story. We don't necessarily need that, luckily. What we need is that structure around it. And so I'm even aligned, with our chief customer officer and our chief revenue officer. I had a conversation with them and said, what's the most important thing that, you want to make sure customer marketing tackles? And on the sales side, our sales leader said, I just want customers to feel like they're a part of something, when they do something, they're a part of it. And I'm like, an advocacy program, great. And that's what he means in our world, right? So there's a whole kind of can of worms that I can go into around the advocacy program, but we've created the blueprint now and it's very structured. And so happy to chat more about that at some point.
Last question in a minute. I didn't prep you for this one, but with all the change happening in customer marketing, you look out 3 years from now or 2 years from now, what do you think is going to be some of the biggest shifts in the customer marketing world?
We touched on it before, but I do think automation and the technology really needs to catch up with where we are. I think we're seeing this across the board, and it's kind of like it's what a lot of companies try to say when they're selling their own product. It's kind of like Amazoning it or whatever, but we need to automate and we need to make it more user friendly. I think that there isn't the technology to support the growth of the customer marketing function. We really are a growing function, and it's becoming more and more evident, I guess, in that way through, I think we were talking before and we saw that customer marketing is the number 3 fastest growing role across all jobs, right?
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Tech jobs. And that's right behind, COVID vaccine person,
right?
right? So yeah, I think if we can see more technologies, but even things like, this summit, it's still like behind in that way as well, in terms of there aren't many organizations around it. There aren't that many events around customer marketing. There's a lot of one-off things. We've seen a lot of other functions like product marketing, for example, kind of take the next step. And what I've said this before, but I think customer marketers are the next CMOs and the next CEOs, because we have that purview of what's going on, for one, with the customer. We know how to tell the customer story. We know what's going on with them. And we're so cross-functional. We work with almost every single department. So I think we'll see, and I hope to see customer marketers step into those more senior roles, because in the past, I think product marketing was that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
move over product marketing,
Right.
customer marketing. So
That's cool. Well, it's
yeah,
a great time to be a customer marketer, it sounds like.
I truly think so. And I always say that I think we have the best job within the organization. We're working with happy customers. We're getting to help people kind of grow in their career. We're telling stories. We're basically just trying to make people feel good and build relationships. So obviously there's a lot of stress that comes along with it, a lot of strategy that you need to put into place and execution clearly. But I don't know, I think that we're in a really good position right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Charlotte, for sharing your insight. If folks want to connect with us, and they can ping you or me on LinkedIn, and we'd love to share more. But thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your story.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. It flew by, and there were more slides and more data points and things like that. So I'm definitely happy to chat a little bit more with anyone about content strategy or just customer marketing in general.
Thanks, folks. We'll see you later.